Solomon's Just the News reported a major bust by ICE, Border Patrol, and Inglewood, California police of a major Guatemalan human smuggling ring, indicting 4 leaders who smuggled 20,000 Guatemalans into both California and Arizona. Our next guest hails from the latter, serving on the Homeland Security Committee, including the Subcommittee on Border Security Enforcement, so he does a lot of thinking and talking and action about this topic. Congressman Eli Crane, thanks for being with us. Congressman, this smuggling operation has been going on for 12 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, this is just a byproduct, Chanel, of actually putting in, cabinet officials that are, filled with common sense and actually have the courage and the ability to carry out the job. I remember last Congress, we were told that some bipartisan border deal, that was concocted between Senate and Congress was what was needed to fix the border situation. Many of us voted against it as it would have codified the invasion. But as you've seen, President Trump has, basically secured the border, within a couple months of being in office, just like he said he would, and just like the American people trusted that he would.
Well, according to this story, the smuggling bust occurred after a record nearly 1 million Guatemalans illegally entered the United States under the Biden administration. So, the human smuggling business is a multi-billion-dollar a year enterprise. So do you think the stakeholders are going to take President Trump's crackdowns lying down? I mean, I think the answer is no, but then the question becomes, how are they going to regroup and adapt so they don't lose that incredibly lucrative revenue that they used to enjoy under Biden?
No, you're 100% right. And, these guys, though they're cartel members, they're very dangerous individuals. They're also entrepreneurs. And so they're going to be flexible, and they're going to go underground. They're going to go in the air. They're going to use drones. They're going to use tunnels. They're going to do everything that they can to keep that money flowing. It's why I have a bill right now that just passed through Congress for the second time. It's the Subterranean Border Defense Act, and it would, make CBP report to Congress on an annual basis, what tunnel threats they're facing, what resources, they need in place. We can't fix problems up here if we don't get reporting on it. And so, you're right. They're going to do everything they can to keep that money flowing.
Well, one way that they seem to be adapting technologically, right? I think I've spoken to several people just this week highlighting some of the concerns that they are seeing in drones, for example. Cartels are using drones to now relay information, surveil the border, figure out where the open spots are. So that's one example. It's almost comforting to know that they're using technology because at least we can intercept it, but surely their resources are deep enough that they have cleverer ways than a drone that we can intercept.
Well, they're also using drones to attack one another. This was one of my concerns as a former special operator and watching how warfare was adapting overseas in Ukraine, and just watching all the videos online about how, drones were being used as kamikaze vessels, and also being used to drop ordnance on opposition. And I knew that warfare would never be the same again. And we're already seeing cartels use, drones in these capacities on one another. And honestly, I don't think it's only a matter of time before we see them use these drones to attack our law enforcement agents and also Border Patrol as well. And so it's one of the reasons it's so important, that President Trump and his team, as they have, are taking this very seriously. It's one of the reasons that his executive order, making the border a national emergency and also declaring the cartels, terrorists, is so important, because then we can actually use a lot of the more sophisticated technology that we have to combat them and eliminate them.
To the chagrin of some in the intelligence community and to the celebration of others, the hearings that were held this week on Capitol Hill on both the Senate and the House side, the Intelligence Committee hearings, discussed with Tulsi Gabbard the threat assessments that are, the latest threat assessments under this administration. And the focus on fentanyl, the focus on our southern border really took front and center stage. And I think a lot of people agreed with that. But what happened was some have criticized that it put Islamic radical terrorism a little bit on the back burner. I believe the criticism is grounded in the fact that we should not be talking about Islamic terrorism and border activity separately. What is your take on that?
Well, I think they go hand in glove. I mean, one of the biggest concerns to many of us that have fought, radical Islamic extremism overseas was when we saw, then candidate Joe Biden basically say that he was going to throw the border wide open and anyone who wanted to claim asylum should rush the border immediately. Many of us knew what that was going to possibly lead to. When you study, radical Islamic ideology, they consider, us the great Satan, Israel the little Satan, and they want to wipe us off the map. And I don't think a lot of Americans can quite, understand that because there's a massive ocean in between us and them, but it's a very real reality. And so it is important to, secure both our northern and southern border so that these individuals, not only the cartels can't continue to move the fentanyl, the human trafficking, and terrorists on the watch list, through, but also stop some of these radical Islamic, terrorists that want to destroy the United States of America, as we've seen time and time again.
The temperature's rising on the left, especially as they continue to panic over what they are starting to call Signal Gate. Your take on the administration's handling of this and the contents that were eventually published by The Atlantic, the contents of these text messages between these top cabinet officials. Your thoughts on the threat level that the left is saying it is?
Well, I think it's, they're doing anything and everything they can to obstruct and to get a scalp here. They're placing a far more, focus on, this signal issue, which was obviously an unforced error, than on what the administration is doing to stop these Houthi radicals that have been targeting our ships. I think there were about 174 attacks since 2023 on our ships. And so, I think the administration is doing a great job when it comes to, dealing with radical groups that are funded by the Iranians, and I think that that's really the signal here, not, what was going on Signal. And obviously the attack that was, being discussed was carried out flawlessly. Nobody died except Houthi terrorists. And, I think for Houthis and others right now that are radical terrorists that want to attack the United States and some of our allies, they're not sleeping very well right now, Chanel. And I think that's the real story here.
They shouldn't be. And I mean, you're a warfighter. This was kind of your field for many years. The idea that the Biden administration allowed these idiots in flip-flops, essentially, to become this totally out-of-control group when it was on path to being essentially squashed under the first Trump administration. So few people remember the fact that the Biden NSA, Jake Sullivan, advised the president to first, take the terrorist designation off of the Houthis, and then they had to backtrack and put the designation back on the Houthis. And this caused all kinds of incredible friction between the United States and Saudi Arabia. The ramifications of what the Biden foreign policy failures have had, especially when it comes to this Houthi issue, is just stunning to me. And I'm amazed that the media has been so tactful in sidestepping that history.
Well, of course, the mainstream media has always been, a cover for the Democrat Party. They'll continue to do so. But when you look at the successes that this administration currently has had within the last couple months, it's almost mind-blowing. And I hope that we can do a better job, within Congress of stepping up and codifying some of the executive orders that President Trump has, wisely signed into law, and actually make them laws, make them more permanent.
Well, that said, the left is lobbing quite the resistance, especially from the judicial front, and you've taken steps to try and fight back. Last month, you introduced articles of impeachment against Judge Paul Engelmeyer for trying to stop President Trump from executing his Article 2 powers. Give us a quick summary of that case, where it stands now.
Yeah, well, basically, Chanel, this judge was trying to stop Secretary of Treasury and Elon Musk from accessing the databases in the Treasury and to see what payments were going out. And I mean, how in the world is anybody in this administration supposed to do their job for the president of the United States when he told the American people he was going to expose fraud, waste, and abuse if they're not able to access the data and the payments going out? You know, Chanel, Elon Musk has been up here several times talking to members of Congress. One of the things that he told us when they started looking at payments that were going out of Treasury, they could not, it took them a couple of days to realize how simplistic and foolish the whole system was. You know, every payment going out didn't have anybody to contact if you wanted to find out where this money was going, didn't have a line item for what this, you know, payment going out was for. And that was one of the first things that they changed. And so when we look at judges like Engelmeyer and others, you know, basically who are a part of this judicial insurrection, this is my message. It will not stop until we in Congress send a serious shot over their bow and make them understand that if they continue this behavior, you know, we're going to make them not only famous, but hopefully we'll, be able to impeach them, fire them, and just hold them accountable for what they're trying to do. Because Chanel, you know, we don't have a lot of time. It's very historic what we have right now with the presidency, you know, the Congress, the Senate. President Trump is doing an amazing job right now, and so is his cabinet. And if we don't step up in Congress and try and stop these judges from doing what they're doing, they're going to continue to delay. And to delay this administration is to deny this administration. And therefore, it's to deny the American people of what they voted for. It's a very serious time. We can't keep playing little games and just strong messaging and hearings. We have to actually, put these judges in the hot seat.
I talked to a lot of lawmakers, and I can easily say, Congressman, you're one of the few that understands the gravity of just how little time there actually is in this window. So I appreciate you saying that. Congressman Eli Crane, always a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for having me on the show.
Coming up, George Behezy joins us for Headline Roulette. Stay right here.